I have an open question for all of the panelists in the interest of time. What would be one thing that you would have done differently over the last 3-4 years as you've been running your company and looking at scale up of the product or the technology that you have? Any one thing that you feel we would have done differently, which would have benefited or hindsight, 2020 hindsight or benefit of experience, you would have done differently? I'll start again. Saurabh, you can go first.
Am I audible, Ganesh?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I think all the points mentioned by everyone are very relevant to the fact that the space that we operate also are, is a similar space. The main theme here, Ganesh, again remains that when you go on to taking your product, you have a certain market fit. Not everything that you encounter on the road might be relevant. It's an entrepreneur's call and the vision to be able to take that further and quickly make a decision, be on the spot, decisive that whether it aligns to me or not. Because as someone said, right, when you hit the market, there is a lot of possibilities, limitless possibilities. Specifically in our case, we have been associated, touchwood, have been very lucky to be associated with few good partners. Our scope is of making a mistake is much higher. If I would put it in a risk term, doing that in the right way, it's a constant equation that troubles people like me. Doesn't let me sleep rather. Make sure that it's balanced and you do what is right for the company as you started as a vision. And since many people have bought into that vision, you are true to that vision. Of course, all this is there with that scalability thought process in line. So I think there is no harm in bowing down to a customer or a partner if he brings in more value than what you envisage and helps you, build this company together. Like Dennis said as well, we want more and more people to look at entrepreneurs not as competition, but as change makers who need a lot of help from everyone. I can already see some smiling faces on the screen. So yeah, that's what I would like to say, Ganesh.
Thank you. Russel, what would the one thing that you do differently looking back, which would be helpful for budding entrepreneurs? You're on mute, I think.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Yeah, interesting question. I was reflecting, there's actually not a lot I would change. One mistake I did make, I invested early in an app. And I do still believe that there's potential for the app to add value to the company, but it was just an over-investment in the technology that wasn't necessary. I also looked at blockchain tokens for adding value to our users. So things that I think potentially would have value in the future in terms of, the vision was to bring, trade carbon on the global market and then bring the value of that to the user. I still think that has potential, but I probably overinvested in that too early. I think really focusing on getting the MVP established is critical, and we've done that. And now we're kind of at the point now, after 3-4 years of being able to go, okay, now what can we do to expand the vision to reach more people and bring more value to our customers? So yeah, I would probably just say stay focused on the core product initially.
Thank you. Tushar, your take. You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So one of the things I wish I had done a little bit earlier was focus on forward market linkages. I think chief guest Dr. Saurabh also mentioned that a lot of startups need assistance with backward and forward linkages. I would be the first to admit that this product doesn't sell itself. It needs a lot of promotion. It needs a lot of demand creation. It needs a lot of consumer awareness, and those forward linkages are critical. You can make them yourself. It costs a lot of money to make them, but there is an enabling environment now available in India with incubators like Social Alpha, and don't hesitate to ask for help. I think there's an enabling ecosystem, and people should reach out. You're not going to be an expert at everything. So where you find your weaknesses, go out and reach out for help. There are people, mentors, funders, investors, donors who will help you with this.
Thanks, Ishan. Yeah, Akash, your perspective?
Yeah, so for us, everyone wanted the product, and so we were running in the wrong direction. Our focus should have been more on who could afford it. So focusing on who can purchase and who can purchase the product, pay the money. So rather, if we could have just focused on the right customer, we could have grown much more faster. And rather than running after everyone who wants the product, so everyone can go to the moon, but not all can afford that.
Right. Thanks, Akash. So very rightly said. Yeah, Soumalya, your take on what would you have done differently if you have to relive the last 1.5 to 2 years that you have been engaged on this product?
A lot of things. So it's failures are basically the stepping stones. So you work on that. So a couple of things. The first thing is that to work on what we are good at. For example, we are good at product development. So we should focus on the core of the product development and work on the business development with other ways or other channels. That is something that I understood a bit late. Secondly, is again collaborating, outsourcing as much as possible. That's very important. Because as a startup, you only have a very small bandwidth with which you can actually work on. So to move out of the other non-important things, onto the other, which basically doesn't align with the core of your company, it's very important. And that is where collaboration actually comes into play, and that is where social effect plays an important role, in which they bring in entrepreneurs from different phases to work together. That is something. And the third thing that I would really work on, that I wish I would have started a bit earlier, was basically the market linkage. Because setting up infrastructure is one part of the game, but when you're working at the grassroots, you have to show the farmer, or you have to give them the farmer the income that he needs, because the farmer is not interested in a cold storage. The farmer is interested in getting his investment back or at a profit. So I think market linkage is something that we should have started off a bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, those things that things are better late than never. So we are working on those things. So yeah, these are the few learning curves that we learned from the first 1.5 years.
Thank you to everybody. Dennis, any perspectives from your side, having listened to all the entrepreneurs speak?
No, I think it just, for those maybe listening, to hear the diversity of challenges, but also the fact that it's so easy to look back in hindsight. But I thought especially about Russel's, that app might have blown up, with a little bit of a different context. And it's so difficult to know what actually want to fly. But I think there are two things in particular, and I think that's also for people who are listening here now and later panel, the investor community. The fact that we now must recognize that the new entrepreneurs that come up with these really exciting solutions, it's not always so easy to, the fact that there's a need and there's a product that is excellent is not enough. They need help to make sure that the customer can actually buy that and that people can afford that in a way. And I think it was Tosha who was talking about the need for business model innovation also to bridge that gap. And for many people with a strong product knowledge, that is not an easy gap. And I think there's where investors also need to be very helpful in that transition to really understand how do we bring this to the market, because sometimes we talk about innovations and we think about the product, but the product is not an innovation unless it reaches the market. Then it's an idea. And this bridge, I think, is one of the difficult ones to cross, but also the one that we need to focus the most on. So again, I think this is very interesting that we're going to follow up this with a panel from the financial side to see how can we, in a more active way, bridge that. And that's one of my core focus also, to make sure that all these brilliant ideas don't stay as ideas, but they can actually go out, help the world become a better place, provide these energy services, and provide clean energy innovation.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you once again to you, Akash, Tushar, Russel, Soumalya, and Saurabh for sparing the time, and most importantly, sharing your perspective. On a lighter note, as much as COVID multiplied, I hope your business also scales up to the same extent. So thank you very much, and I hand it back to the organizers.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, for moderating the diverse panel. And thank you to all the panelists to share your learnings over your journey of the startup.